Hello, everybody, and welcome to One Autistic Person. So, I'm planning on doing a series of videos that are going to go more in depth into the longer video that I did around the Autism Quotient. I want to do it for all of the autism tests that are on Embrace Autism, but this one is specifically around the Autism Quotient and sort of go into bite-size sort of breakdowns of these questions. What I realised when I was doing the video that I did is that the whole process of having the assessment is looking at deficit, and with this what I want to look at is turning a deficit into a benefit, because in reality all of those deficits are benefits to us. So I'm going to go through every question, all 50, so that's 50 videos, and I'm going to try and do it so that we have 50 videos, one a day, which will be quite interesting to do. So the first one is, I prefer to do things with others rather than on my own. And I answered definitely disagree. So I'm going to do this on my answers to this. Obviously that is very personal, so it may not necessarily relate to you. But I really want to open up a conversation within a community to talk about what this means to everybody. So for me, I do prefer to do things on my own. I don't prefer to do things with others. But the benefit to that for me is that you can be hyper focused on doing the thing you're going to do. That we go, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on this document. I'm going to create this document. I'm going to research this thing. I'm going to do this thing. But for me, I then go back and I always want to share it with somebody. So I might ring my mum, or I will go and speak to the person that I live with and like info dump on that person. So I will then go, oh, there's all of this information, or I want to read this thing to you. And it tends to be really, really good stuff. And the reason why I think, for me personally, that stuff is really good stuff is because of the fact that I was able to do it myself. So we can see that generally, yes, from a societal perspective, it's not great to be on your own. I personally have no issue with being on my own whatsoever, and I can see why it would be seen as a deficit. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a deficit, and I think it can lead to a lot of really positive things that come from it, as long as it's not isolated, that you just go, okay, I'm going to absolutely isolate myself. And it kind of feels a little bit like that's what I prefer to do things with others rather than myself. If you say I definitely disagree to that, you're kind of saying I really don't want to be around other people, and that kind of isn't the case. It's like, I don't want to be around other people while I'm doing this thing. I want to focus on it in a really deep way, and then I want to share it with others. And I think it's a misinterpretation of things quite often, that we are seen as people who want to be isolated, and we're really not. I don't want to be isolated. What I want to do is be able to spend the time that I need to be able to spend on something, to be hyper focused into it, to the point of where I either learn a lot about that situation, I am able to create the thing that I need to create, I'm able to develop an idea that somebody else has come up with, whatever it is that situation is. I want to 100% be in it for that time period, but it does not mean that I do not want to then share that with other people. And I think this is a misinterpretation of the concept of this question. I want to do this myself, but I want to share it with you afterwards. So I think that's what we should be taking from this, is the fact that we probably do need, I'm not saying everybody, obviously everybody who is autistic experiences it differently. My personal interpretation of it is that I need that time for myself to go through all of the possibilities, and it could take me a really long time or a short time. It is relevant to what I'm doing, but I then want to share that. I think most of the time we are looking at the fact that we want to do something ourselves, we want to create something ourselves, but afterwards we want to share that thing with other people. And I think my worry is that we look at the whole process of a diagnosis as looking at deficit, and looking at it that not spending time with other people is a deficit. It's not. It really isn't, because actually quite often on the flip side of that, we want to share afterwards. And I think we want to look at that as a positive, rather than it being that we're going down the negative route of automatically going, well, you don't want to be around people. No, I don't when I'm doing something, but I also do really. I will run up the stairs to the person I live with to then have a conversation with that person about this thing that I've created, that I want to share it with that person because that person matters to me, but I needed the time myself to be able to go through it. So I really do think we can look at it as a positive and say, I don't want to spend a huge amount of time with loads of people creating stuff because I can do it myself, but I will come to you afterwards and ask for your opinion, and I'm always really open to the opinion of what other people are then going to say. Go back and have a look at this. I will then have to go back into being on my own to be able to process that. So it's a kind of a cyclical process, but with an understanding of the fact I'm not going to do this with you. What I will do is take the information you're going to give me, I will go away, process it, come back to you again afterwards. And if people can understand that, then I think that puts us in a really strong position to be able to create real difference, because a lot of autistic people don't think of things in the same ways that neurotypical people think of things, because we're just not constrained in the same way. We don't go, this is the way things have always been, therefore that's the way it's going to be. So it allows us to be able to look at things in that bigger picture perspective. We need to quite often go down to that minute detail and build the bigger picture, but sometimes need the bigger picture shattering again by somebody else who we never thought we needed to shatter that bigger picture for us, and then go, okay, you've created this bigger picture, shatter it and start again. And I'm quite okay with that. I've become okay with it. I used to be quite bad with taking that criticism because I spent all this time doing something on my own, and then went and shared it with someone. I was like, oh well, you're not really happy with what I've done. And it's like, and on the flip side, that person's seeing something you haven't seen. So I don't think this comes down to that we are solitary creatures, that we are people that don't want to be around other people. It's just that when we are really having to go through something, or processing something, or experiencing something, we often need to be on our own to do that and experience it fully and think about it fully and research it fully. It doesn't mean that we are not people who want to be around other people. I think it's a misinterpretation, and I think even I've quite often gone, I want to be on my own all the time, but actually what I've come to realise over the last few months is that I don't want to be on my own. I want to be able to process and think on my own, and then I want to be able to go through that with somebody else who's able to help me with that process further, and I want to share that, and I enjoy the sharing. We love info dumping quite often. A lot of autistic people love info dumping, so it's like you create this thing, then you info dump, and then it's then the cyclical part of that you go through a cycle of going, I'm going to info dump, and then I'm going to learn from the information I get from the info dump, and then I'm going to go back through that cyclical process to make it so that idea gets better. And we can only get better by listening to what other people are saying to us, and then going back into our shells and going back into our own personal thought process on this. So I don't think this is a deficit. I don't feel that it is a intrinsic deficit. It clearly is a deficit. Being on your own it's seen as a deficit from a societal perspective, but it isn't. It is a positive. It is a benefit, and we can come back to people as long as we keep going back and having that conversation. It's a benefit. So let's look at things as a benefit. Let's look at these deficits that are seen within the diagnosis process as it has to be a deficit to be diagnosed, but there are benefits on the back of it, and that is what I'm trying to do with these next 50 videos, and I hope I got that point across.